AITA for refusing to let my family meet my daughter after all of them dropped out my wedding upon finding out my wife was pregnant. My childhood took place in a Christian family that was quite conservative in its beliefs. It has been and continues to be my family's tradition to be engaged in the church and to work for the church. My wife's in-laws fell in love with her the minute they lay eyes on her and adopted her as their own the moment they met her. It was after we had been engaged for 2 years that we realized she was pregnant. We had been dating for 2 years at the time. At the time of the wedding, my wife was 5 months pregnant, and we made the decision to postpone mailing out wedding invitations until after the baby was born. When my wife became pregnant without my knowledge, my family was upset, to say the least. Several of our visitors inquired as to whether or not we were still contemplating a marriage proposal. Why not, I said. They were not happy, particularly Mom and Dad, who stated that they had always been recognized for their decency and strong Christian beliefs, and that they were not willing to let this tarnishing of their reputation to occur. As an example, my wife and I were married when she was pregnant with our son. They formally withdrew from the wedding and refused to negotiate, claiming that it had already been finished, and that I was solely responsible for the result, and that the wedding should be transferred to a different location. Because I was hurt, my attempts at convincing them otherwise and consulting with other church members failed. My brother dropped out because he didn't want to appear foolish in front of his fellow church members. My aunt pretended to be sick and said she might not be able to make it, despite the fact that she is perfectly healthy. My cousin said he had a business trip and prevented his wife and children from attending. My uncle cursed me out, tore the invitation, and kicked me out of the church. After the ceremony, I was overcome with emotion and broke down in tears. I haven't talked to them in months, since I have been preoccupied with the growth of my 4-week-old kid. My cousin approached me and presented me with presents and well wishes for my family in celebration of the birth of my kid, which I much appreciated. At that moment, everything had been returned to my possession. He sat with me and told me that I shouldn't have returned presents from relatives who wanted to pay a visit and maybe get engaged in my daughter's life. He was speaking from the perspective of the family. He expressed delight at the prospect of meeting his mother's grandchild, and he expressed delight that everyone was looking forward to celebrating my daughter's birth as soon as it was feasible. Did it happen that my daughter was the one who persuaded everyone to call off my wedding? I inquired of him about this matter more. Whenever I began to describe how they handled my kid as if she were something to be ashamed of and hide from the world, he only gazed at me with a nervous expression. My daughter at some point will ask about the wedding, and I have no intentions on lying to her. And he insisted that no matter what happened between us, I would never be able to deny that my kid is their granddaughter/niece/ etc., and that they are her family, no matter how much time passed between us. I, on the other hand, declined his request that I make arrangements for them to pay them a personal visit. Although he persisted in his pursuit of the notion, I refused to consider it any further. My wife, on the other hand, urged me to allow them in, which I first refused to do. Story 2. AITA for booking to go away the same weekend as my boyfriend, leaving him to look after our daughter. My spouse and I are the parents of a 3-year-old. Before we had her, he used to go away by himself on occasion, and this has increased dramatically after she was brought into the world. Not for extended periods of time, but just for a night or 2 at a time. Also, he makes visits to his daughter from a previous relationship, which is okay with me, for reasons I'll explain later. He is well known for failing to notify me when he intends to depart. He often says he told me something and I forgot about it. In order to see his daughter on weekends when other plans had already been arranged, he had made arrangements with her mother. These were all pre-COVID. Once, on our anniversary, I arranged for my mother to babysit for us so that we could have a night out on the town. Another time, I was going to attend a baby shower and asked him to look after our daughter while I was away. I had arranged a trip to the theater with a friend at another point in time. Due to the fact that his daughter lives a significant distance away, he would have been unable to return in time to care for our daughter. Even though he was well aware of his daughter's intentions, he claimed to have forgotten about them while arranging travel plans to see her in person. Due to the fact that I didn't want to be unfair to her, I didn't ask him to cancel. Therefore, I had to create fresh arrangements in each case. It goes without saying that, as a consequence of the restrictions, he has been traveling less often. He's been departing as soon as they've gotten their bearings. I've never been away from our child for more than a couple of hours. When the lockdown occurred, I had a few plans in mind, but each time it happened, they were all canceled without a doubt. He says that he supports my decision to leave and that he is not interfering with my plans. But I have tried to explain that his regular absences interfere with my plans since someone needs to care for our child. When it comes to keeping a watch on her in case there's an issue, neither of my parents feel comfortable doing it. My summer plans include spending a few days with an acquaintance once the restrictions have been lifted. When I told him about it, he said I wouldn't be able to accomplish it on that day since he was going on a cycling trip that weekend. In response to my allegation that he hadn't informed me anything about this, he claimed that he had and that I had just forgotten about it. His request to cancel was that I go meet my friends anytime I wanted, and he explained why. I could reorganize things, but I don't believe I should. He could also rearrange the campsites, which I think he should. As a result of my refusal, he is now in a rage. Are my actions culpable because I failed to rearrange my plans? Edit. When the problem of his double scheduling visiting his kid arose, I ordered a family calendar. The problem is that he will only write in it if I bug him, or he would reply that he will do it later and that he will not treat him like a kid. Update 1. I'm not sure if anybody really wanted an update, but the issue escalated and I needed to rant. Thank you to everyone who left a remark. So I spoke to him about the family calendar and people's advice that if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist, making certain that my time away was included. He appeared to agree and said he would reschedule his bike ride. Wonderful, I thought. Until the morning of the trip, that is. My boyfriend often wakes up incredibly early, and I roll over and go back to sleep, so I didn't think anything of it when he got up early. I heard the door close, but assumed he was taking out the trash or something. I couldn't locate him when I awoke, and the automobile was vanished. I tried calling him, but there was no response. Some of his belongings had vanished. I asked my neighbor to go through his garage for my boyfriend's bike, where he keeps it. It had vanished. At this point, he's confused and silently fuming, so tried his phone a few more times. Nothing. At this point, call my pal and tell him I can't locate him and will most likely miss my train. I receive a phone call about lunchtime. He'd left on his excursion. Tells me to look at the calendar. He has typexed out my writing and wrote in his travel journal. I tell him a few choice words. He essentially claims it's my responsibility, since I should have gotten out of bed sooner. So I informed him that he had won and that he could now go on as many bike rides as he wanted. A friend advised that we take the kids to the beach. Her son is a similar age. We had a great time at the beach the following day. I told my boyfriend not to come back. He thinks I'm overreacting, but I'm done. Update 2. He returned on Sunday. Due to the fact that I'm renting, I am unable to replace the locks. Came returned as if nothing had occurred. I politely requested him to go since our daughter was nearby. He said that he was not leaving and that he would babysit her the next week so that I could go. I expressed my disbelief that he had entirely missed the significance of what he had done. I called my brother and begged him to come get us. We've been staying there till I can figure out the logistics of the separation. X has been calling nonstop and showing up to my brother's place, where he was sent away. He has, at long last, apologized. I stated I'm still done. I simply don't have the energy or the desire to do it anymore.